People think deadbolts are about keeping strangers out. That's the comfortable version. The harder truth is that most doors fail because somebody nearby already knows too much. Your work schedule, your footsteps, where you leave your keys, when you shower, which packages you bring inside, and what your lock sounds like when it turns. Tonight's 4 stories are about neighbors, apartments, hallway cameras, spare keys, vacant units, and doors that stop behaving like doors. One woman kept receiving a spare key she never gave away. One tenant heard his deadbolt unlock every night at exactly 1:13. One apartment was listed as vacant, but someone inside copied everything the woman next door did. And one doorbell cam showed a man leaving an apartment he had never entered. If you live close enough to hear someone else's lock click at night, this one's for you. The spare key. I moved into Bramley Arms because it was cheap, quiet, and close enough to work that I could stop measuring my life in gas receipts. That was the kind of decision I was making back then. Practical ones, small ones, the kind you make after a breakup, when you've already sold the couch, split the books, and realized half your kitchen was never really yours. I'd become careful in ways that embarrassed me. I checked the back seat before I got into my car. I slept with my phone plugged in beside my bed. I kept the porch light on, even when I knew it added to the electric bill. None of that felt dramatic to me. It felt like what you need to do when your life has been split open once, and you're trying not to give the world another seam to pull at. The Bramley Arms was an old 3-story building with beige carpet in the halls, brass numbers on the doors, and mailboxes that never closed all the way. The lobby smelt like dust, warm radiator pipes, and whatever someone on the first floor cooked every Sunday afternoon. It wasn't nice exactly, but it was solid. The doors were heavy, the stairs didn't echo too much. The deadbolt on my apartment had a firm, satisfying turn. That mattered to me. Apartment 2C was mine. Apartment 2D was across the hall, and that belonged to Mrs. Kell. I met her the day I moved in. She was small, maybe in her 70s, with white hair pinned flat against her head and one of those long gray cardigans that looked like it had more pockets than fabric. She opened the door just wide enough to show me one eye and half a chin lock. "You're the new girl?" she said. "I guess I am." "You alone?" It was not asked like a threat, more like she was filing me somewhere. "Yes," I said. She nodded once. "Then keep your key close." I thought that was just old building neighbor advice. I told her I would. 3 days later, she knocked on my door at 7:40 in the morning. I remember the time because I was running late. I had one shoe on, coffee on the counter, and my work badge between my teeth because I was trying to clip it to my bag with both hands full. When I opened the door, Mrs. Kell was standing there with her cardigan buttoned to her throat. "You dropped this," she said. She held out a brass key. It was plain, no plastic cap, no tag, just a single apartment key on a thin metal ring. "That's not mine," I said. She looked past me into the apartment, not rudely, just quickly, like she was checking whether something had moved. "It is," she said. "You should not leave it in the hall." I almost told her again that it wasn't mine, but I was late, and she was old, and the easiest thing was to take it. The key was warm. "That's a strange detail." "I know. Keys get warm in pockets. Hands get warm. It shouldn't have meant anything." But Mrs. Kell's hands were cold when I accidentally brushed her fingers. I put the key in my coat pocket and forgot about it until that night. I had just come home, and I was digging for my actual key when my fingers found the spare key she had given me. I I held it up in the hallway light. Different cut, different shape at the end, not my key. Just to prove it, I put it in the lock. It turned. The deadbolt clicked back with the same clean click as my real one. I stood there for a few seconds with my hand on the knob, staring at Mrs. Kell's door across the hall. I didn't knock. I told myself there was a simple explanation. Old building, bad management. Maybe the lock had not been changed after the last tenant. Maybe Mrs. Kell had found an old spare key and assumed it belonged to me. The next morning, I called the office. The property manager sounded annoyed before I finished the first sentence. If you want a lock change, there's a fee. I don't want a lock change, I said. I want to know why my neighbor has a key for my apartment. That got me transferred to maintenance. Maintenance came out on Thursday. A man named Phil changed the cylinder, handed me 2 new keys in a sealed envelope, and told me nobody else had copies. Not even the office? I asked. The office has master access, he said, but not copies of your unit key. This is a fresh set. He showed me the old cylinder. He showed me the new one. He seemed honest, or at least bored enough not to lie creatively. For 2 days, everything was normal. Then Mrs. Kell knocked again. This time it was Saturday afternoon. I was folding laundry on the couch. I opened the door with a towel in my hand. Mrs. Kell held out another brass key. You dropped this, she said. I looked at her hand, then at her face. That is not possible. She frowned like I'd said something rude. You leave them everywhere. I just changed the lock. I know. The hallway seemed very quiet after she said that. I didn't take the key. I left it sitting in her palm. Where did you find it? I asked. Laundry room. I was just in the laundry room. Yes, she said. There was something about her answer. I didn't like it. Not the word, the timing. It came too fast, like she'd been waiting for that exact objection. I took the key because I didn't know what else to do with it. After she closed the door, I tried it. It opened my lock. I called the office again. They told me maintenance would not come out for an unverified duplicate concern unless I paid for another lock change. So I paid. Phil came back Monday. He recognized me and laughed a little when I opened the door. Again? Again. He changed the lock in front of me. I watched every step this time. I watched him cut open the package. I watched him install the cylinder. I watched him test both keys before he left. I asked if he knew Mrs. Kell. Across the hall? He said. Yes. She's been here forever. Does she have keys? He gave me a look that wasn't quite a yes and not quite a no. She returns things, he said. What does that mean? He adjusted his tool bag on his shoulder. Means if she gives you something, check if it's yours before you throw it away. That was not helpful, but it scared me more than if he had said nothing. For the next week, I kept both new keys on me at all times. I didn't leave one in a drawer. I didn't give one to a friend. I didn't hide one outside, because I'm not stupid. I also started doing the small rituals people do when they don't want to admit they're afraid. I photographed the key ring before work so I could prove both keys were with me. I checked the lock before I left, then came back upstairs from the lobby to check it again. I put a chair near the door, not against it, because I told myself that would be paranoid, but near enough that I could move it quickly if I needed to. I also started checking the door every time I walked past it. Locked, chain on, peephole clear, tape on the frame. The tape was something I had seen in a movie or maybe a crime show. A tiny strip of clear tape from the door to the frame, placed low where nobody would notice. If the door opened, the tape would break. I put it there before work on Wednesday. When I came home, the tape was still intact. That should have made me feel better. Then I walked into the kitchen. A brass key was sitting on the counter beside my sink. Not by the door, not on the floor, not under the mat. On the counter. I stood there with my bag still on my shoulder, staring at it. The apartment was exactly as I'd left it. The windows were locked. The tape on the door was unbroken. The chain was still laying against the door where it always fell when I left. I didn't touch the key. I backed into the hallway and knocked on Mrs. Kell's door hard enough that my knuckles hurt. She answered after the third knock. The chain stayed on. "You left this in my apartment," I said. She looked tired, not guilty, tired. "I only give them back when you leave them behind." The way she said it changed something in me. It wasn't defensive. It was not an excuse. It sounded like a rule she'd been repeating for years to people who kept asking the wrong version of the question. "I didn't leave it anywhere." Mrs. Kell's eyes moved from my face to the open doorway behind me. "You did," she said. "Where?" She lifted one thin finger and pointed, not down the hallway, not towards the laundry room, toward the inside of my apartment. I slept at a friend's house that night. The next week, I broke my lease. I told the office it was because of safety concerns. They charged me 2 months' rent and kept my deposit. I paid it, because by then I would have paid more just to stop hearing Mrs. Kell's slippers in the hallway. On my last day, I saw her one more time. She opened her door while I was carrying the final box out. "You'll lose one if you go too fast," she said. I didn't answer. At the new place, I checked every lock before I brought in a single box. New building, new neighborhood, new landlord. Keypad at the front entrance. Deadbolt on the apartment door. No Mrs. Kell across the hall. For a while, I was okay. Then, 3 weeks after moving, I came home from work and found a brass key on my kitchen counter. It had a little paper tag tied to it with gray thread. Apartment 2D. Mrs. Kell's apartment. I don't know why I tried it. I wish I could tell you I threw it away or called someone or did anything smarter than walking slowly to my new front door and slide the old key into the new lock. It turned perfectly. I changed apartments because I thought the problem was the building. Then the key found the new lock before I did. The lock at 113. The first time I heard my deadbolt unlock by itself, I blamed myself. That's what people do with things they can't explain. They make themselves the weak part of the story. I told myself I must have forgot to lock it. I told myself the sound that woke me at 1:13 in the morning was the building settling, or a neighbor closing a cabinet, or the kind of half-dream noise your brain turns into something familiar because it's too hard, too tired to be accurate. Then I got up and checked the door. The deadbolt was open. I remember standing there in my socks, one hand on the wall, staring at the little thumb turn resting straight up and down instead of horizontal. I live alone, 4th floor, newer complex. Cameras in the hall, control access in the lobby, smart locks on the package room, and a gym. The apartment still had old-fashioned deadbolts inside because according to the leasing office, residents prefer a manual privacy lock. The building liked to advertise that phrase, manual privacy lock. It was in the brochure, on the website, even in the little move-in packet they gave me with the mailbox key and the pool rules. They made it sound like control. No app, no battery, no remote access. Just a piece of metal you turn with your own hand. I preferred it too, until that night. I locked it again, checked the chain, and went back to bed. The next night, it happened at exactly the same time. Click. Not loud, not dramatic, just the small, heavy sound of a metal sliding out of place. I looked at my phone before I moved. 1:13 a.m. I turned on the bedroom light, walked to the door. The deadbolt was open again. That was when I stopped blaming myself. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. At 8, I went to the leasing office. The assistant manager, Tori, listened with the expression of someone deciding which script to use. "Do you have a pet?" she asked. "No." "Any chance the lock wasn't fully engaged?" It was fully engaged. Sometimes temperature changes can make older hardware shift. It's not old. She smiled. I can put in a work order. Maintenance came that afternoon. A guy named Lewis tested the deadbolt 5 times, tightened the screws, sprayed something in the mechanism, and told me it was fine. "Probably just not catching all the way," he said. I showed him how I locked it. Firm. All the way. He shrugged. "Call if it happens again." It happened again that night. 1:13. Click. This time, I was sitting on the couch with my phone pointed at the door. I had started the recording at 1:10. For 3 minutes, nothing happened. The hallway was quiet. The apartment was dark except for the blue light from the router and the thin bar of kitchen lights I had left on. Then, the thumb turn moved, slowly. Not like it slipped, not like a spring gave out, like someone had pinched it carefully between 2 fingers and turned it from the other side. Except the other side of the deadbolt doesn't have a thumb turn. I watched the video 6 times before I sent it to the office. The next morning, Tori didn't smile as much. She watched the clip twice without saying anything. The first time, she leaned forward like she was expecting to catch a fishing line or a trick of the light. The second time, she watched my face in the reflection on the dark television screen beside the door. Then, she asked me to email the clip instead of showing it to people at the desk. By noon, Lewis was back with a new deadbolt. He replaced everything: cylinder, bolt, strike plate, screws. He even checked the frame and the door alignment. "Try that," he said. I locked and unlocked it. Clean, solid. Lewis looked uncomfortable. "You got anyone messing with you?" "No." "Ex? Friend? Neighbor?" "No." He nodded, but he didn't look convinced. That night, I set up 2 cameras. One phone in the kitchen counter facing the door, one old tablet propped up against a stack of books in the hallway inside my apartment. At 1:13, the new deadbolt unlocked. Both cameras caught it. The office finally let me see the hallway footage. I had pushed for it. They said resident privacy. I said safety issue. They said camera review was for staff only. I said I had video of my deadbolt turning by itself and I'd rather not post it online, but I was running out of people who seemed interested in helping. That got me a conference room. Tori brought me into a small conference room and turned the monitor toward me like she was showing me bad medical results. The hallway outside my door was empty. No person, no shadow, no movement except the slight flicker of a fluorescent light near the elevator. At exactly 1:13, the audio picked up the click. My door never opened. Nobody approached it. Nobody walked away. Then, Tori opened the access report. even though the apartment deadbolt itself was not digital. The front door sensor recorded open, closed, and the manual lock status for maintenance logs. Next to 1:13 a.m., the report said, manual interior unlock. That means it was opened from the inside, Tori said. I was on the couch. I understand. No, I said, you don't. That next night, I added the chain. I bought it from a hardware store 20 minutes away because I didn't want anyone from the leasing office seeing the receipt in the trash. I installed it badly the first time, stripped one screw, then took it out, and did it again until the plate sat flat and the chain pulled tight. I also pushed a chair under the knob, which I know doesn't really stop anything if somebody wants in bad enough, but it made me feel less ridiculous than sitting there doing nothing. At 1:13, the deadbolt opened. The chain caught. The chair didn't move. I was 6 feet away recording. For about 10 seconds, there was silence. Then, from the hallway outside the door, a voice whispered, "That one is new." I didn't move. I don't think I even breathed. The voice wasn't loud enough to wake the neighbors. It was not dramatic. It sounded like someone making a note. That one is new. Not, who are you? Not, let me in. Not anything that belonged in a normal fear. It sounded like I had added a line to a checklist. Front deadbolt, open. Chain lock, new. Occupant, awake. Noted. I sent the clip to Tori. She didn't respond until morning. When she did, it was only one sentence. Please come to the office when available. The office had printed the hallway footage. There was no one there. Not before the whisper, not after, no person standing close to the door. No one crouched under the camera. No one at the stairwell. But the audio had the whisper, cleaner on their system than mine. That was new. Tori told me they could transfer me to another unit if I signed a release acknowledging the issue had been investigated and resolved. Before she slid the form across the table, she turned one page over so I couldn't see it. I saw it anyway, only for a second, but long enough to read the header. Resident transfer exception. Repeating entry complaint. Repeating? Not unusual, not isolated, repeating. There were other unit numbers listed beneath mine. 1F, 3C, 4A. One had a handwritten note beside it that said, "Closet reported. No hardware found." Tori noticed me reading and replaced her palm over the paper. I asked her what that meant. She said it meant that they didn't want videos online. I said I didn't want to live in an apartment where something was opening my lock. She looked at the printed access log on the table between us and said, very quietly, "I wouldn't either." I packed that weekend. Before I left, I requested a copy of the final access report for my records. Tori emailed it to me as a PDF. I still have it. Most of it is exactly what you would expect. Front entry sensor active. Deadbolt locked. Deadbolt unlocked. Manual interior unlock. 1:13 a.m. But the last night had two entries. The first was for the front door. The second was also at 1:13. Manual interior unlock. Bedroom closet. My bedroom closet didn't have a lock. The last report didn't say someone came through my front door. It said something inside my closet had learned how to unlock itself. The vacant unit. I work nights, so I'm used to hearing buildings at hours when most people think they're asleep. Pipes knock differently at 3 in the morning. Refrigerators hum louder. Elevators sound tired. People who believe they're quiet are never as quiet as they think. So when I first heard movement in Unit 3B, I didn't think anything supernatural was happening. I thought the landlord had lied. That seemed more likely. I lived in 3A. Unit 3B shared my bedroom wall. When I signed the lease, the property manager told me that 3B was vacant and would stay vacant for at least a month because they were doing renovations. That was part of why I took the apartment. I had just switched to overnights at a surgical recovery center, and the idea of sleeping during the day with one less neighbor sounded like a luxury. For the first week, 3B was quiet. I got used to that quiet fast. Too fast, probably. I started thinking of the shared wall as a gift. On my side, blackout curtains, work shoes by the closet, scrubs folded over the chair. And on the other side, nothing. No television, no arguments, no morning blender. Just an empty unit soaking up the noise I was too tired to handle. Then, the microwave beeped. It was at 11:42 in the morning, and I was in bed with blackout curtains drawn, trying to sleep through a garbage truck outside. From the other side of the wall came 3 soft beeps. Not loud, not impossible, just someone's microwave finishing. I lay there annoyed, not scared. That evening, I emailed the property manager. Hey, I thought 3B was vacant. Is someone doing the work in there during the day? He wrote back, no one is occupying 3B. Renovation hasn't started yet. Old buildings carry sound. Fair enough. 2 days later, I heard a shower through the wall, then a cabinet opening, then footsteps. Again, annoying, not terrifying. The strange part came when I noticed the timing. At first, I wrote it down because I thought I was building a complaint. Date, time, noise, duration. The kind of thing property managers hate because it looks organized. But after 3 entries, the list stopped looking like a complaint and started looking like a transcript. My life ran on a schedule most people didn't share. I came home around 7:30 a.m., showered, made food, took medication, checked messages, then tried to sleep before noon. One morning, I showered at 8:10. At 9:10, the shower started in 3B. I microwaved soup at 9:34 for 90 seconds. At 10:34, the microwave in 3B beeped after exactly 90 seconds. I dropped a spoon in the sink and swore. At 11:02, a spoon hit something metal through the wall, followed by my exact, small, embarrassed laugh. That's when I sat up. The next morning, I tested it. At 8 a.m., I opened and closed my medicine cabinet 3 times. At 9, the same sound came from 3B. At 8:12, I coughed twice. At 9:12, someone coughed twice on the other side of the wall. At 8:20, I set a phone alarm for 5 seconds and let it ring. At 9:20, the same alarm tone rang in 3B. Then I did something stupid on purpose. I knocked 3 times against the shared wall, waited 2 seconds, then knocked once more. At 9:23, the wall answered with the same pattern. 3 knocks, pause, 1 knock. That was when I stopped taking notes for the landlord and started taking them for myself. I didn't sleep that day. I emailed the property manager again. Then I called. Then I went downstairs to the office before my shift with the kind of politeness that's mostly anger wearing a uniform. He told me the unit was empty. I told him someone was inside. He told me that plumbing carried sound. I told him old plumbing didn't copy my phone alarm. That made him pause. The next morning, he came up with a maintenance tech and opened 3B. I stood in the hallway while they went inside. The apartment was empty. Not just unfurnished, empty. No microwave, no shower curtain, no medicine cabinet mirror, no bed, no boxes, no appliances plugged in. Dust on the counters, paint cans in the corner, a roll of plastic sheeting by the balcony door. The property manager looked at me like he had won. I walked past him into the bedroom. The wall shared with my room had marks on it, fresh ones, 4 horizontal scuffs at mattress height. A rectangular clean patch where a nightstand would have blocked dust. Tiny indentations in the carpet where bed legs had pressed down recently. I asked how old the marks were. The maintenance tech didn't answer. The property manager said, probably from the previous tenant. I asked why they were fresh. He said, I think this has become stressful for you. I wanted to ask him whether stress left mattress marks in vacant rooms. I wanted to ask him whether old plumbing set phone alarms. Instead, I looked at the maintenance tech because he had gone very still. He was staring at the shared wall, not at the marks, at a place just above them where someone had written a small line in the dust with one finger. Keep up. The property manager saw me see it. He stepped in front of the wall and said, We're done. That was the moment I understood no one was going to help me. That night, 3B stopped copying me 1 hour later. Instead, copying me 1 hour earlier. At 6:15 a.m., while I was still driving home from work, my phone buzzed with an alert from the cheap indoor camera I'd set up in my apartment. Motion detected. When I opened the app, my apartment was still dark and empty. Then, my alarm went off in the bedroom. Not from my phone. My phone was in my hand. From the other side of the wall, 3B played my alarm at 6:15. The alarm I always set for 7:15 on my days off. When I got home, I didn't go inside right away. I stood in the hallway between 3A and 3B listening. Behind my door, silence. Behind 3B, someone moved across the floor. Then came my kettle whistle. I didn't own a kettle. I knocked on 3B. The sound stopped. I said, Who are you? From inside the vacant apartment, my own voice answered, You're late. I moved out before the end of the week. I didn't give notice. I didn't argue about the lease. I slept in my car for 2 nights and then on a coworker's couch until I found another place. The last thing I did was leave my key on the kitchen counter in 3A. Before that, I stood in the bedroom for almost a minute with my ear close to the shared wall. There was no sound from 3B. No breathing, no footsteps, no copied movement, just quiet. Then my phone alarm rang from the vacant side of the wall. Not the alarm tone I used anymore, an older one, the one I used 2 apartments ago, before the night shifts, before this building, before I lived beside an empty room that knew what I was going to do. I'd already packed everything else. As I closed my door, I heard the key land on the counter in 3B. Same sound, same weight, exactly 1 second before mine left my hand. I used to think the sounds from 3B were echoes. Then they started happening before I moved. The doorbell video. My neighbor's camera showed me leaving apartment 6A at 2:17 in the morning. That was the problem. Not entering, leaving. If the video had shown me going in, I could have argued it was fake, or edited, or someone who looked like me. I could have said the clip was missing context. I could have asked where it came from before the camera caught me, but the footage started with the door already open. Then I stepped out, calmly, like I belonged there. I lived in 5C, across a small courtyard from a row of 6 ground floor apartments. It was not exactly a complex, more like a horseshoe of old rental units around a cracked concrete courtyard with a laundry room at one end and a parking lot on the other. Everyone had a doorbell cam. That was not because the neighborhood was dangerous. It was because packages disappeared just often enough to make people suspicious. And the building group chat ran on suspicion, the way some cars run on gas. The message came in on Tuesday morning. It was from a woman named Dana in 6B. Whoever was outside my building last night needs to explain themselves before I send this to management. Then she posted the clip. At first, I watched it like everyone else, annoyed and curious. That was how the group chat worked. Someone posted a clip, everyone became a detective for 10 minutes, and by lunch, the mystery was usually a raccoon, a delivery mistake, or Mr. Pell from 4B forgetting which porch was his after a few beers. I opened the video expecting to roll my eyes and go back to work. The clip showed the door to 6A opening inward. A man stepped out carrying a small cardboard box. He wore dark pants, white sneakers, and a beige jacket. He turned toward the camera just enough for the porch light to catch his face. Mine. The group chat went quiet for about 10 seconds. That silence bothered me more than the accusations that came afterward. In a building chat, people answered everything. They reacted to lost cats, parking spots, smoke alarm batteries, packages, noise, weather. But for those 10 seconds, everyone saw the same thing, and nobody wanted to be the first person to say my name. Then, 3 people tagged me. I type, "That isn't me." Someone sent a question mark. Dana replied, "It's literally your face." I was home asleep at 2:17. Nobody believed that. I could feel it through the screen, so I checked my own camera. My doorbell cam showed nothing between 1:56 and 6:03. No motion, no person leaving, no person returning. Just my front step, my doormat, and one moth bouncing around the porch light. I posted that clip. It didn't help. If anything, it made the whole thing worse, because now the question became how I appeared across the courtyard without leaving my own apartment. Then, other neighbors started checking their cameras. By noon, there were 5 clips. In each one, I was leaving an apartment. 6A at 2:17, 4B at 2:23, 2D at 2:31, the laundry room at 2:36, the old storage closet by the mailboxes at 2:44. Always leaving, never entering, always carrying a box. The beige jacket was the same in every clip. So were the shoes. The box was about the size of a shoe box, sealed with clear tape. On one side, written in black marker, was my full name. That was the part that shut everyone up. I didn't own a beige jacket. I did own white sneakers, but not that pair, and I had no idea what was in the box. Apartment 6A had been vacant for 2 weeks. I knew that because the unit sat directly across from the mailboxes, and for days there had been a white envelope taped to the door that said "Final Walkthrough" in block letters. Then the envelope disappeared. Then maintenance carried out 2 lamps, a rolled rug, and 1 dining chair with a broken leg. After that, nobody came or went. The last tenant left suddenly. That was what people said when they wanted to share gossip without admitting they liked it. She left suddenly, no forwarding address, left some furniture behind. Management cleared it out. I called the property office and told them someone had been in 6A. They said that was impossible. Then I emailed the clips. 30 minutes later, the manager and maintenance guy came to open the unit. Half the courtyard watched from behind curtains and cracked doors. 6A was empty except for boxes. Not moving boxes, small boxes, shoebox size. Maybe 20 of them, stacked neatly in the living room where a coffee table would have gone. Each one had a name on it. Donna from 6B, Mr. Pell from 4B, Marcus from 2D, my name, names from the courtyard. The manager told everyone to go back inside. Nobody did. The maintenance guy picked up the box with my name. I told him not to open it. He looked at the manager looked at me, then she opened it anyway. Inside, there were printed stills from the doorbell clips. There was a smell in the box too. Not rot, not mildew, something like warm dust from inside an old printer. The photos were stacked face down with small paper tabs between them. Each tab labeled with a unit number in handwriting too neat to belong to anyone I knew. No screenshots on cheap paper. Glossy photos, me leaving 6A, me leaving 4B, me leaving the laundry room, me leaving the storage closet. At the bottom of the box was one photo I hadn't seen yet. It showed my own front door, open, a beige sleeve in front of the frame. The timestamp was 2:17 a.m. My camera hadn't showed that. I went back to 5C and checked the app again. There was still nothing at 2:17. I refreshed. Nothing. I restarted the app. Nothing. Then at 3:06 that afternoon, my phone buzzed. Delayed event upload. The clip was from 2:17 a.m. My front door opened from the inside. At first, the apartment behind it was black. Then, the man who looked like me stepped into the frame backward. That was the only way I could describe it. He didn't walk out. He was pulled out, heel first, shoulders stiff, head tilted slightly like he was listening to someone inside the apartment. He held the box against his chest with both hands. My name faced the camera. Just before the clip ended, the beige jacket version of me looked up, not at the camera, past it, toward my window. I moved 2 days later. Management offered to let me break the lease quietly if I deleted the clips from the group chat. I didn't delete them. Donna did before I could stop her. She said she didn't want her name connected to whatever was happening. I still have my own video saved in 3 places. I watch it less than I used to. There's no answer in it. Only the same question every time. Where was I before the door opened? For a while, I told myself the answer had to be technical. A corrupt file. A delayed upload spliced wrong. A person who looked like me enough to fool people who already expected guilt. But the app listed my camera as the source. The timestamp matched every other clip. And when the beige jacket version of me stepped backward out of my apartment, the deadbolt turned after him from inside. That detail is why I stopped trying to prove it to people. If someone had faked the clip to scare me, they would have made the door slam. They would have made the face smile. They would have done something obvious. They would have not remembered the lock. The camera never showed me going in. That was the part that kept me awake. It only ever showed me leaving.